77 WABC and Bergen Newbridge Medical Center honor the life of legendary broadcaster and our friend, Ernie Anastas.
Hi, it's Ernie Anastas. You know, your thoughts can affect how you feel. Bergen Newbridge Medical Center is the largest hospital in New Jersey, providing comprehensive, equitable, compassionate, and high-quality emergency inpatient and outpatient medical care, plus mental health services and substance use disorder treatment. The Bergen Newbridge team can address your total health needs in one convenient location. Call 201-225-7130 for an appointment or newbridgehealth.org.
Cats and Cosby on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, the President of the United States was on WABC this morning, and he was on for, I guess, almost 40 minutes.
Wow, it was a home run.
And he was on with Sid Rosenberg, and Sid Rosenberg is with us right now to talk to us about it.
Hey, Sid. And Sid, before we go, I want to play this because he talked about his trip to China. And here's a little bit, Sid, about what he told you. It's making worldwide news, my friend. Here it is.
This meeting coming up on Thursday with China.
Well, I think it's going to be good. And we do have it's good to have a good relationship. You know, when I first got involved, China was just really taking advantage of us. And they're not anymore. And, you know, we do great with China, but we have a very good relationship and, you know, a lot of advantages to us getting along. And if we didn't get along, you'd know about it.
Sid Rosenberg, that was just one of the things. He's now off to China. And before he took off, he spoke with you. So what did you think were the big headlines? You talked about so many things, Sid.
We did, and like John said, he gave me 40 minutes, which is pretty unheard of in radio. He'll do that on Fox and Friends in the morning. He'll sit with Sean Hannity for an hour, but radio 40 minutes is unheard of. And starting with the China news right there, Rita, you're right. I've already seen that, believe it or not, guys, on CNN. It's pretty surreal to walk down the stairs, and there I am on CNN talking to Trump about China. Look, you guys know it's a very, very weird relationship. There's no question that Xi, just like Putin and the guy in North Korea, all these enemies, they love Trump. They do love him. But the truth is, it's a weird relationship because China right now is helping Iran. That's the bottom line. China is helping Iran. They're getting them weapons through the Caspian Sea. They're helping the Russians get them drones. And here we are trying to stop Iran. Yet on the other hand, China needs our help to make sure they get their oil from the Strait of Hormuz, so they need us. Plus, we've got the talks coming up about Taiwan and obviously the essential minerals and the car dealers and car makers in the United States. So there's a lot in common, but there's a lot not in common. So the question is, how does President Trump make this trip work for us when the truth is it may look good on the outside, but it's not so good on the inside?
Craig Eaton.
Sid, it was a great segment this morning, and I love the fact that the president praised WABC and the fact that AM radios need to stay in automobiles, and he said he's going to do everything to help us. That was amazing.
And in fact, you guys hold on because I have that clip of where he talks about AM radio with Sid. And here is President Trump talking about something near and dear to our heart. And he said he is going to support it. Take a listen.
The one person that can save AM radio, he called you the big guy, is the big guy. So when Sid talks to President Trump, make sure Sid brings it up. So I'm bringing it up.
Well, you know, I don't know if you know it, but I delayed it a long time in my first term. I delayed it. And it got delayed, but, you know, time flies, and now all of a sudden it's coming up again. They were going to do it in my first term, and I wouldn't allow it to happen.
That's right.
But I'm glad you mentioned it because, you know, it's not on my radar for some reason because John Catsimatidis has done a phenomenal job. He should run ABC Television Network. He should run the ABC television stuff. They are the worst of all.
So what do you think, John? Are you going to get ABC Television Network? That's what Trump says you need to do.
Well, maybe I should take a shot at it.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think, Sid?
Sid always wants to be on television.
Yes, Sid, there's a chance. We just make it ABC Radio, ABC TV.
Listen, I'll take it. And Craig Eaton, thank you for bringing that up. But that was not me. That was all John. I spoke with John before the conversation with Trump, and he said, and John's working hard on this for a long time. Yep. I got to give John Catsimatidis credit. Him and Shad Lopez, both of them have traveled across the country to make sure that AM radio is still relevant. But look, you know, ABC TV, they are terrible. Bill Ritter, maybe the worst of all the anchors. He's so biased. He's so agenda-driven. I do like NJ Burkett, but Bill Ritter may be the absolute worst. But the truth is that President Trump knows we need AM radio. Why? his favorite talk show hosts in the country are all conservative radio hosts, whether it's Sid Rosenberg, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, John Katsimatidis, Greg Kelly. We're all conservative radio hosts. So he knows that the reason why Democrats don't want it is that will silence us. So trust me when I tell you that there may be powers out there trying to stop it from happening. And even Congress keeps talking about this sunset clause, which gives us just 4 years or 8 years. But the president knows the importance of AM radio, the future of conservative talk radio. And I think in the end, John, Chad, Sid, we're going to win.
Yeah, that's a home run. And just like you said, and listen, not only for talk, but we've talked about it on the air for emergency purposes, during hurricanes, during storms, sometimes that's the only communication. So there's a lot of big key.
Now, there's a lot, the Democrats are trying to push something, Sid. They're trying to push the fact is they want a sunset clause. And AM radio is indispensable. Why a sunset clause? Who is pushing that? Yeah, you know what they're doing? It's the same thing they're doing in Iran. Let's have peace, and maybe we get the Democrats, voted in November, and then we can do whatever we want in Iran again. And the sunset clause, the word sunset clause means that the law goes away in 8 years. Well, that's a lot of crap. Why should it go away in 8 years? Is AM going to be less valuable in 8 years from now? What do you think?
Probably more valuable. And don't forget that even when Barack Obama and John Kerry, those two dopes, put together the initial Iran deal, which is the worst deal ever made in this country's history, me and Trump agree on that, they had a sunset clause, too. Do you know if President Trump did not get rid of that deal back in 2016, that Iran could have started making nuclear weapons 4 years ago? So all sunset clauses mean is it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah,
that's not good. We don't want the Democrats to happen eventually.
Well, what they want is that if we get our people in, we're going to change it. That's what bottom line is.
Well, we need to do that. We need to get our people in. We need to change it. I did ask President Trump, guys, this morning about the midterms, and he seemed as confident as ever. And one very important question I asked the president, guys, we're talking about Iran, of course, and we talked about regime change. We talked about the Strait of Hormuz. But I asked him flat out, President Trump, I said, listen to me, you and Bibi get along great? Yeah, we get along great. We've never been closer. Everything's great. There'd be no Israel without me. He's right about that. But I said, President Trump, are you 100% sure, 100% sure in your heart of hearts that we will make sure that Iran will never be able to enrich that uranium and build a nuclear bomb? And he took about 3 seconds and he said, Sid, 100%. They played that reader too, by the way, on CNN and MS Now, and I think Fox News as well. So President Trump telling us this morning he is 100% sure. He left no room for any doubt. There'll be no enriched uranium and no nuclear weapons coming out of Iran.
And by the way, said that was also, I think, in the Jerusalem Post too, right? So it's like all over the place.
Yes. You know that I've actually been so far this afternoon. I'm glad you mentioned that, Rita, on the cover of the New York Post, Jerusalem Post. And here's the best one of all. As of right now, I'm on the cover. We're on the cover, WABC, of the Iranian newspaper. Now we really made it.
Oh, wow. Where's Baghdad Bob when you need him? Now, Sid, let's get to New York, because he also talked about Ken Griffin and he talked about Mamdani. I want to play a little bit of this. This is what he told you about New York and the mayor. Here it is, Sid.
You can't tax people out of New York. When you tax people out of New York, you never get them back. They think they're going to get them back. Like she's trying to get them back now. You don't get them back. Once they leave, they're gone. And I mean, you won't have a city left. You won't have a state left. It's a very dangerous thing that's happening right now.
So, Sid, elaborate. What else did he tell you about the situation in New York?
The one thing I always do, guys, Rita and John and Craig and the whole crew, Judge, is I make sure I get to the New York stuff. Why is that? Because, look, everybody asks about China. You could be doing any radio show, any TV show in the country. China, Iran, midterms. But New York is either us. That's ours, okay? No one else is going to ask President Trump about New York for the most part. So he knows how much I hate Mamdani. I gave him the chance again today to say Mamdani's a bad guy. He wouldn't do it. In fact, twice he said, I think he's a good guy. But yet, after he said, I think he's a good guy, he admitted that forcing people out like Ken Griffin will destroy New York. Don't forget, President Trump is less than 3 weeks removed from putting on Truth Social. I hate to say this, but Mamdani is destroying New York. So, it's kind of a weird dynamic. On one hand, he goes, He's a good guy. I kind of like him. And then he admits that driving out people like Ken Griffin, maybe John Catsimatidis, will eventually ruin this city. And he's upset about it. He said, look, Ken pays a lot of taxes. And then he went, this is very funny, he goes, and so do I. So President Trump is still paying big taxes here in New York City. And he knows whether it's the governor, Kathy Hochul, who's doing a horrendous job. If God loves us, I know God does, Bruce Blakeman will be the next governor and save us. Kathy Hochul's doing a terrible job. And all those taxes she says she's not going to do now, she'll do them all because she's scared to death of Mamdani once she beats Blakeman. So Trump knows this. He knows that Hochul's a danger. He knows Mamdani's a danger. He knows we need people like Ken Griffin, John Catsimatidis, and Bill Ackman to stay in New York. He's saying all the right things, but if you shut the door and shoot him up with truth serum, he's going to tell you New York is in a lot of trouble.
What about ICE? Did he talk about, because there's definitely been a war of words especially between Tom Homan and Kathy Hochul of late.
Yeah, we talked about ICE quite a bit. I said, listen, President Trump, that's another thing. They vilify you. He's used the word evil. Mamdani has used the word evil to describe President Trump's administration. And yes, I even said to President Trump today, Rita and crew, I said, I got to tell you, this is going to sound terrible, but I actually think the Democrats are happy that Pretty and Good are dead. I really do. I think they like the fact that they're dead because those two dead bodies now give them an argument as to why ICE is bad. They don't care about the 100,000 rapists and murderers and drug dealers that we deported and put away. They don't care about the thousands of little kids that were lost during the Biden administration that we found. If you look at the numbers, guys, 2 people dead in Minnesota. We know one's enough. There were 2 dead. There's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of bad people that we've gotten out of this country. The numbers don't add up. So I said to Trump, I said, I think they like that. He didn't argue. He said, look, at the end of the day, these are not good people. They don't want to close the borders. They don't like ICE. So he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the name. They don't like ICE. But now I'm going to call them nice. I'm going to put national in front of ICE and call them nice. See if they like that. But he's very upset that the Mamdanis, the Hochuls, the Minnesotas, all these sanctuary cities and states are not doing right by our law enforcement agents. When you look at the numbers, guys, again, Ready and Good, that's terrible, don't get me wrong, but the numbers say ICE or nice, they're doing a terrific job.
It's funny. What about the nice? How far is he from that actually happening? Because can you imagine, John, if the Democrats or say CNN has to say, well, the nice agent showed up at this such and such location. I mean, if he changes the name, how serious is he about that, Sid?
I think he's serious.
As the Gulf of America.
Yeah, and it happened, right?
And I tell you this, one of the funniest parts of our conversation this morning was he says to me, Sid, you're not going to believe this. He goes, I got guys. They've been in politics for 25 years. 25 years. They'll call me. They say, President Trump, I got this big race coming up. I need a nickname. You need a nickname. He goes, look, I feel badly about some of those nicknames. He goes, I'm friends with Marco Rubio now. I'm friends with all these guys I nicknamed years and years ago. He said, but I am good, right, Sid? I came up with fake news. I came up with Pocahontas. She's still a bad person. But he said, Sid, almost every day, some politician calls me and says, I got to win this race, President Trump. Get me a nickname. He loves that.
Well, I mean, has he given you a nickname yet, Sid?
He's never given me a nickname. Now that you said that,
I mean, if you're going to run for mayor someday, you're going to need a nickname.
Well, you know what? I'm saving that for the next conversation. His daughter-in-law, Laura, has already endorsed me on the air. So has Bruce Blakeman. So has Mike Lawler. So has many people in this city. I'm not taking all that seriously just yet. You've done this, John. You know the deal. A lot of people are happy. More people are angry. When you look at the Republican field right now, I mean, Curtis is going to run again. This guy combined for 21%.
He has 3 chances. Slim, none, and less than none.
I think that's pretty accurate, yes. But he's going to do it again. So right now, if he's the best we've got, then I'm going to have to make that choice at some point soon and maybe jump inside the race.
Well, boy, that would be interesting. Can you imagine? Sid for mayor. I love it.
Well,
I love it.
I had Rachel Campos on today. She does a great job on the weekends, Rita. You know her. Fox News does a great job. She hosts the Facts and Friends on Saturday and Sunday. She's got a brand new book out celebrating 250. And I played the Lara Trump cut from last week. Well, Lara said, Sid, you got to do it. You basically have a set of balls. You're not going to back down. You're not going to be intimidated. You got to do it. And on the way out of a 20-minute conversation, Rachel Campos screamed with Sean Duffy right there, her husband, run for mayor. So if Rachel Campos says it, How can I say no?
How can you say no? Now you've had, and now I'm saying it. So you got 3 women saying it. Do you know 3 women saying, Sid, you got to do it? Guys would pay big bucks for that. All right.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Sid, I'll talk to you in the morning.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for bringing me on. And you guys do a great job. You know, Trump said to me, he goes, I was listening to John Katsimatidis last week. He said this. He goes, that guy really loves his country. He loves America. So for what it's worth, he's not listening now. He's on the plane on the way to China. But when he's around, President Trump loves you guys. So congratulations.
Oh, and he loves you too. And Sid, huge congrats on a big, big scoop, my friend. Well deserved and awesome stuff. Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you. Awesome.
Take care, guys. Bye.
And, John, we have Professor Alan Dershowitz now joining us.
Well, I love that professor.
I love him.
I have a great idea. I think that Staten Island should secede from New York and immediately elect Sid as mayor of Staten Island. So then we get a competition between Staten Island, New York. All the corporations are going to move to Staten Island, and it's going to become the greatest place in the Northeast.
I love it. The Mecca of Staten Island. What do you think? What do you think, Judge Weinberg? What do you think?
I want to switch to Virginia. Can I switch to Virginia?
No, we're saying no, but go ahead. Go to Virginia.
We can get to Virginia. Virginia is the easiest case going. I cannot imagine any lawyer signing their name to a brief in the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to review a state constitutional determination.
Yeah, where's the federal question? It gets into federal jurisdiction.
Question? Where do they? You know, Rudy Giuliani has been disbarred for making frivolous arguments. This is more frivolous than any of the arguments that Rudy ever made or Eastman ever made. It's absurd. You get a state court saying specifically we're focused on the state constitution. That's federalism. You can't. The Supreme Court has no power, no jurisdiction. We'd have to fight a civil war for that to happen, for the Supreme Court of the United States to have the power to tell a state how to interpret its constitution.
But Alan, let me ask you this.
Yes, exactly. I know where you're going to go. Look, the judge loves this. He's hopping out of his seat.
Alan, so they lose the case before the Supreme Court of Virginia. They're going to try to take the Supreme Court. You and I absolutely agree they have no chance to get it there, let alone to win. So now, as a second argument, what they want to do is they want to impose term limits at the age 54 to totally remove the court and then pack it. What are your thoughts about that?
And by the way, as a coincidence, all the members of the board, Professor, the youngest one, happens to be 54.
Must be a coincidence.
Have they lost their mind completely?
Is that legal? Right.
No, of course not. The Constitution provides that the justice of the Supreme Court shall serve during good behavior. Now, I think a justice of the Supreme Court can be impeached.
No, I'm talking about Virginia.
This is Virginia's Supreme Court.
Yeah, but I'm sure they have very similar rules, comparable rules. But the idea that you can somehow, term limit judges that way, the term limits have been upheld, and age limits have been upheld at age 70 or whatever. But age 54, which means that Ruth Bader Ginsburg never would have gotten on the Supreme Court. Justice Holmes, I think, wouldn't have made it on the Supreme Court. Some of the greatest justices, obviously served into their 80s and 90s. So, we're playing politics with the court. What I'm looking at is to see whether any of the 3 liberal justices, particularly Brown, would have the chutzpah to say, well, I would vote for certiorari. I come up with some cockamamie idea as to how the federal courts have jurisdiction, how the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over the state matter. I mean, it should be 9-0 with a rebuke to the lawyers for bringing the case. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if there are any votes for granting review. We first of all, we don't usually often find out. Sometimes it just says certiorari denied. But sometimes it does say with a dissent by so-and-so and so-and-so. So we'll wait and see whether or not the 3 liberals on the court are compliant with the general rules of federalism.
Professor Dershowitz, we had, sadly, a second really out-of-control protest at a Jewish facility. This one happened last night in Brooklyn. And the images were really bad, like where they were pushing police. You see These all masked, of course. These protesters.
Well, I have to tell you, I just want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I went to a funeral today of a dear friend of mine, Abe Foxman. You may know.
Oh, yes, of course, a legend.
He was the head of the Anti-Defamation League. We've worked together for 40 years. I have to tell you, my family was concerned about me going to that synagogue for that funeral for fear of my life. Nothing happened, fortunately. But, this was a well-advertised funeral for a man who was a strong Zionist, strong supporter of Israel, strong supporter of the Jewish community. And the idea that I have to be afraid to go to a synagogue tells you everything you need to know about what's going on in New York. If this were in England, I don't think I'd go. I think I'd watch it on closed-circuit television. If this were France, I would have hesitation about going. And if this were Brooklyn, I'd have hesitation about going. It's interesting. The two things that are closest to my heart growing up were Brooklyn and now Harvard. And the Democratic Party. So I'm now pretty much 3 for 3. I've given up a lot on Brooklyn. I love Bay Ridge and I love Bensonhurst. But downtown Brooklyn and, Brooklyn Heights and the co-ops and all of that, you can have that part of Brooklyn back. Harvard, I have no feeling of warmth toward Harvard today. And the Democratic Party, of course, I've left. So, I feel a little bit homeless and a little bit that my past has abandoned me, and many others feel the same way.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. Well, we have former Brooklyn GOP chair Craig Eaton.
Professor, I still live in Brooklyn. I live in Bay Ridge. I've been there 35 years. But
Bay Ridge is a good part of Brooklyn and Bensonhurst and parts of Flatbush. But don't tell me that Park Slope is today a good place. What do you think about that? These people who are really Manhattanites who have moved to Brooklyn to take over. And to turn it into a radical left-wing place.
Well, the temperatures are really running high in Brooklyn. In Bay Ridge, for example, Fifth Avenue in the 70s is the largest Muslim population in the entire city. I mean, from the 50s all the way to the 80s now on Fifth Avenue. But
I know, and a lot
it's
of
still
also
safe.
Chinese,
it's still safe.
A lot of Asians, and it's good.
Yeah.
And I think they're much better off there than in the fancy parts of, where I was born in Williamsburg. I was born probably in a 3-family house on U Street. Probably was worth $2,000. It's probably worth $5 million now. It's, Williamsburg has become very, very fancy. And 2 groups of people largely live there, the Hasidim, and then the very hard left people who are intolerant toward people who are different from them. So, Brooklyn is a mixed place, but boy, very different from when I grew up, where there were just wonderful neighborhoods. People could walk on the street, and people got along. We played basketball against each other, and we flirted with each other's girlfriends. Sometimes got into a fist fight over that. I was the worst,
What about, though, the protests that have been taking place there? I mean, this was horrible. They were waving Hezbollah flags last night. And I was watching some of these images today.
Can you imagine that? You bring in immigrants, but these are not immigrants. It goes back to my immigrants and migrants. You bring in migrants, and they're waving the flag of another country.
Now, not just of another country, of a terrorist group.
And of a terrorist group that says we want to destroy America, that America is the big Satan. Remember, Hezbollah is Iran. There's no difference. They just spell the words differently. But Hezbollah is a wholly owned subsidiary of Iran, as is Hamas and as are the Houthis. And so, that's why this war in Iran cannot end with these mullahs still in control of, because they're exporting their terrorism to Brooklyn, and they're exporting their terrorism all over the world. And that can't be tolerated. That's why I think President Trump has to really bite the bullet and make regime change more possible. I think there are things that can be done to make it more likely.
And before we let you go, Professor Dershowitz, you brought up Harvard. This is so horrible, this case yesterday of this guy who opened fire in Cambridge, Massachusetts, literally firing at cars and people. I think he got off like 50-plus rounds, seriously injured 2 people. And when you look at the background, Professor Dershowitz, He was charged with trying to kill a cop a couple years ago, and he served 5-6 years. Prosecutors wanted to give him 12. He only got. What is going on with these judges?
Well, the Massachusetts has become a very, very radical place. They have a very radical governor, very radical mayor in Boston. The congresswoman from Cambridge, where I lived for 50 years, is a complete crazy radical, part of that whole squad business. And so, I'm glad I moved out of Cambridge. I lived there 50 years. I'm much happier in New York and in Florida. So that's where I intend to spend the rest of my life, in Florida and New York in the spring. But I think a lot of people are being driven from New York to Florida. And, that's understandable in light of what's going on. But when Sid becomes mayor, they're all going to come back.
Yeah, that's true. They'll flock back. Back. Professor, one of the things that happened here was one of the, Tim Shee's also looking at Senator Tim Shee of Montana is looking at maybe some legislation to hold judges accountable civilly. If they overreach or if they don't do anything, they give somebody a slap on the wrist. Is that even conceivable?
It's very unlikely. The Supreme Court, in a decision some years ago, ruled, without real legislation, ruled that judges have a very high degree of immunity. You can't imagine how bad that case was. In that case, a Southern man told his 16-year-old daughter that she needed an appendectomy, and without her knowing it, while she was unconscious, he had the doctors tie her tubes so she couldn't have babies because she was going out with a man that the father didn't approve of.
Oh, my God.
And the judge went along with it. The judge secretly went along with this. And when the girl grew up and found out she couldn't have babies, she sued the judge. And the Supreme Court held the judge was immune even from that. And
my God.
My God. Judges are above the law today under Supreme Court decisions. So I don't think we're going to get very far.
Judge Weinberg is celebrating on the across the way for you.
Well, he's a retired
That's
judge.
right.
He doesn't have
Thank
immunity.
You.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. In my next life, when I come back, I'll worry about it.
Because he does the right thing. He doesn't need immunity. You only need immunity if you're a bad guy.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we talk about that. I mean, we have so many judges that are letting people out, and the people that they're letting out are bad criminals, and they're going out and killing other people.
And if you don't let them out, the judge apologizes to them for keeping them in, the way the judge in the District of Columbia apologized to the guy who tried to kill the journalist and the president. So, the judges have become part of the very divisive political system in the country, and that's too bad, because judges should be above partisanship and above politics and should be administering the law equally and fairly. And many do. Most do, but not all.
Absolutely. Professor Dershowitz, we love you.
Thank you very
Great
much.
to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
for having me on. Bye.
Bye-bye. And John, we're going to take a break. And then we have Fernando Mateo's coming up to talk about Mondani. He is fired up.
Katz and Cosby on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The following is a paid issue advertisement.
If the vote count is accurate, then how come the number of voters is different? And if it's not accurate, then why was it certified? We are suing Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections for a conspiracy against fundamental rights. This is not about who won. It's not about what party. It's about the fact that they don't care about your rights.
Paid for by RealAmerica.vote, a DBA of New York Citizens Audit Civic Fund, Incorporated.
Go to RealAmerica.vote. Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Well, Mayor Mondani unveiled his executive budget. Now it has to go to city council for approval. There'll be a lot of back and forth, but he had a big sign in front of him saying tax the rich. And there's a lot of plans in there to do so. Well, joining us now to talk about all this and more is Fernando Mateo. Fernando, what did you think of this?
Well, listen, I am tired of being taxed. I'm taxed up to the nose at this point. You know, Mayor Mondani is trying to do what he believes is the right thing. His biggest problem is the advisors that he has around him. None of them know anything about business. none of them have ever earned any money. So all they do is hate the people that make money and that create jobs and that make things happen in this city. I really would wish for the mayor to reconsider and look at his staff and say, who amongst you has ever made any money? Who amongst you has ever run a business? Because guess what? We are running New York City. New York City is the biggest business in the world. Nothing bigger than New York City. Yet they don't know how to do it. And they don't find the right advisors that understand business, that understand what job creation is, who understand that befriending, okay, all of the billionaires and all of the millionaires of New York City, they will get a lot more than trying to force their way in and take what's not theirs, take what other people have earned, and that pisses me off. You know, Mayor Mondami may have the right intentions, but he has to get the right advice. He needs small business people in a commission. He needs big businesses in a commission. He needs to get a tin can and go around and ask the Bezos, who just donated $100 million, okay, to help pre-K students, okay? You know, who will donate $100 million? Maybe he could have gotten $500 million from the guy if he were friendly and he would go to him with a tin can and say, I need your help. You know, we need common sense government. We don't need a government that's just bloated because they're all bureaucrats. These people continue to recycle themselves. They go to the city council. They leave the council. They go to the assembly. They leave the assembly. They go to the Senate. They leave the Senate. They go to borough president. Then from borough president, they go to controller.
It's a permanent job.
You know,
whatever, it's crazy. And Fernando, I mean, there is no common sense at all. I mean, what's going on in Virginia, me and Rita pointed it out to Professor Dershowitz, that they want to, the judges, the Supreme Court justices in Virginia that voted against the Democrats, they want to have a retirement age of 54 and get rid of them all. I mean, you can't make this up.
Right. It's change the rules, right?
You know, the bottom line is that we don't have people that have any kind of experience running our government. So they do what they think is right. They feel that by giving the house away, they're doing the right thing. And that's not the way it works. People don't want handouts.
Let's look at the education.
Want jobs. People want opportunities.
Fernando, let's look at the education of two of our congresswomen. Congresswoman from
AOC?
AOC. She gets rid of Amazon for that was going to invest $30 billion, and she stupidly says, "This is how stupid this is. We're going to keep the $4 billion. We're going to give them back." There was no $4 billion. After Amazon put $30 billion into our city, 7 years from now, we give them back part of it.
Right, but she's telegraphing like she's going to save everybody money by doing it.
And what's the other congresswoman? One second, one more.
Who's the other one?
The one, the one in Minnesota?
Oh, Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar. When she's reading World War II, World War with two Roman numerals, 2, she says World War 11. I mean, how stupid. I mean, don't you have to pass an IQ test or a history test or something?
Obviously not.
You just have to be elected, that's all.
Isn't that scary?
John, it's scary. It's not only scary. Understand, Ocasio-Cortez was a bartender. She had personality. She had charisma. And she beat a powerhouse in Queens.
Yes.
That's right,
Totally unexpected. Yep. Totally unexpected. Why? Because she smiled, because she was young, because she was funny. Why did Mondami win? Mondami won because of his smile, because of his energy, because of his personality. You know, we have our biggest problem here are ourselves. We allow these people to become elected officials, and we do nothing about taking them out. You know, if these billionaires really wanted to do what's right, they would invest in solid candidates and they would get these people out of there.
One quick question, Craig. Craig, 12 years the GOP chairman of Brooklyn. Did you do such dumb things in Brooklyn like they do?
No, he didn't. But he got elected because of his lies. He got elected because of the promises he made to the young people. You're going to get free buses. You don't have to pay your rent. We're not going to raise your rent. He made promises to people. They believed these promises, and they voted him
just
in.
like Obama did.
It's not just about the promises. It's not just it's the charisma. It's the smile.
I agree. I agree. The whole social media phenomenon. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but none of them know a goddamn thing about business.
No, none of them. They know nothing.
They're chasing people away where they should be bringing them in.
We might as well bring back Sergeant Schultz and make him a congressman. Fernando Mattel.
He'd be better. He was a good actor.
Thank you so much for coming on. We have to go on. Thank you so much.
All righty.
Thank you, Fernando.
And Goya Foods are sponsoring the top news of the day. Give us the top news.
It's the top news of the day. Here's Rita Cosby.
By the way, John, I like that Sergeant Schultz reference. I loved Hogan's Heroes.
You might as well make Sergeant Schultz a congressman.
I agree. Bring back Robert Crane, right? Bob Crane was great. My vote. Exactly. Well, here are the headlines, guys. President Trump is on the way to China, and he's feeling optimistic about the trip. He says he will have a long talk with Xi, of course, about Iran. And also the hantavirus. A lot of people talking about this. The World Health Organization is assuring that there are no signs that the virus is going to become a large outbreak. That's what they say.
I'm gonna call Dr. Michalos to come on later on for a couple minutes.
Oh, good, to give us a good update because he is the best. He's our resident genius. We love him. A Renaissance man, I agree. By the way, they're saying that all cases so far have been among the passengers and crew of the hantavirus-infected cruise ship where the 3 people died. And we'll get an update from Dr. Peter Michalos. And everybody stay tuned because we have General Jack Keane coming up. Big updates and the big latest on Iran. Who better than him?
Katz and Cosby on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news, WABC.
And this is interesting, of course, after the big recent elections that took place there, which were not good for Keir Starmer's party. Now, the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who's been like a Neville Chamberlain when it comes to Iran, well, he is trying to put down a revolt that could end up bringing in a 5th leader there in 7 years. So we'll keep you posted on that, John. That is an interesting one.
I think since the king was here with President Trump, I think it riled up the troops, and they said, "Hey, this prime minister we have is for the birds."
Right, because even, John, you bring up a good point, because when the king was here, he was really, really articulate and showed stalwart support for, the United States and the eradication of nuclear weapons. So you got to give him credit for that.
Now, we have General Keane on. Let's go to General Keane. Yes,
we do. We have the great General Jack Keane, and of course, everybody, he is a retired 4-star general. He's also the chairman of the Institute of the Study of War, and he's also a Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, where is all this headed now? Of course, President Trump on his way right now to China. It's a long trip. We were looking, it's like a 16 hours.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Is it going to be quicker in Air Force One? What do you think, John?
No, not quicker, no.
All right, so a 16 hour trip.
But definitely comfortable.
Yeah, definitely comfortable, right. Definitely comfortable. So what do you think is going to happen with China, with Iran, General Keane? What are your thoughts?
Well, certainly, initially, the objectives in going to China were largely economic. Certainly dealing with the trade imbalance that we've had for years with China, and also discussions around tariffs and technology transfer. We want them to buy more from the United States than what they've been buying. And, we made a deal with them before, and they sort of reneged on half of it in the first administration, the first Trump administration. So I know the president likely is going to be much firmer on this. And the things that they're wanting to buy is soybeans and Boeing aircraft and the like. I think he's taking somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 to 8 CEOs with him in terms of doing business with China. But clearly, hanging over the talks, which was not in the planning stage when these talks were initially put together, is Iran, as you appropriately stated. And that is a reality here. And for our audience to understand, China buys 90% of Iran's oil, which is their major source of revenue. They buy it at discounted prices, and that means that China has been financing Iran's behavior for years, and particularly given the fact that the sanctions have been imposed on them. And China has been a way of getting around those sanctions. So all of the rockets and missiles that you've seen the Houthis use, that you've seen Hamas use to fire at Israel, that you see Hezbollah, tens of thousands of them, many thousands just recently, all of that is financed by Iran. That's the major source.
It goes
of
beyond
revenue
that. And I want all our listeners to know, under President Trump 45, we allowed Iran only to produce 300,000 barrels a day. Under President Biden 46, we not only did he bring the price of crude oil up to 100, he allowed Iran to produce 3 million barrels a day. So we made them, how do we say it, zillionaires again?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt what China's complicity is. So what does China really want here? For sure, they want a negotiated settlement. Why is that? Because the regime will survive, and there will be sanction relief, unfrozen assets, frozen assets in the neighborhood of about $100 billion. Not all of that would go at once if a deal was made, but it would be condition based. And they want reparations. Now, the president hasn't agreed to any of that, but that's what the Iranians want, and for sure that's what China wants. Why? Because the regime not only survives, but they begin to recover. And that's what China wants. This is their major foothold in the Middle East, and they get about 35 to 40% of their oil still from the Middle East. Only 10% comes from that purchase of Iranian oil. So they are very dependent on the stability in the Middle East, but they want Iran to maintain the influence they have in the Middle East going forward. So they don't want President Trump returning to full combat operations, which he's inclined to do now, given the deal has been essentially blown up. And I'm sure President Xi is going to probably try his best to talk him down from that. But listen, China and the United States, this is the most important bilateral relationship that's been established since the end of the Cold War, when the United States was in a similar relationship with the Soviet Union. And both of these leaders recognize the significance of it. Obviously, we're both superpowers. We've been a military and economic superpower post-World War II. China is an emerging power. And we're clashing because why? Because President Xi has stated time and again he wants to dominate and control the Indo-Pacific region, and he wants to replace the United States as the world's global leader. This is not fiction. This is something
you're right.
He is moving in that direction.
Now, isn't the other part of this is let's have peace until maybe the Democrats get in, and then we can do whatever we want again? I mean, I don't think there's any common sense Democrats left in the Democratic Party that I have respect for.
Well, where President Xi is certainly, he understands, I think, watching President Trump in the first term. And people think there's a difference in first term, second term. That's nonsense. When President Trump looked at the world that he had to deal with in the first term, he dealt with. He finished ISIS, used military force to do it. Assad uses chemical weapons. Obama, having a red line, ignored and did nothing. Trump stopped it because he knew that could be dangerous. If you tolerate the use of WMD, other nations will do it. So he stops bad things from happening and was willing to use force. He took down al-Baghdadi and also Qasem Soleimani, which was quite significant. 4 years go by, and Biden's foreign policy is in the tank. Russia conducts an invasion in Europe, first one since of any consequence since World War II. Iran and their proxies start a war in the Middle East. Trump comes into power. The Western Hemisphere is completely out of control, where cartels and fentanyl and the rest of it and open borders. And he would rather the world not be like that, but it is. It's the world he has to deal with. And he went out there aggressively to deal with all of these three major areas. So she has seen this, and he knows what he's dealing with here. I think President Trump, despite the political opposition out there and what they're saying, goes into these discussions with the wind at his back, given he's taken Venezuela away from China as being their number one foothold in the Western Hemisphere by capturing Maduro and now bending that regime to our will.
Yep.
And he's pushed back on Iran quite significantly here. Nothing is going to be the same for Iran going forward. And he understands this. You're absolutely right, John. President Xi is not going to go to conflict operations when President Trump is in office as the President of the United States. Not happening.
Absolutely correct on that. Well, General Keane, thank you for coming on this Tuesday night, and we have a long week ahead of us.
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah.
An interesting week and hopefully a good week for the world.
Absolutely. Jack, thank you. Thank you, General. We love you. Thank you.
Yeah, great talking to you, Rita. Great talking to you, John. Take care.
Thank you. And John, I understand we have calling in now Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin.
Let's go to Wisconsin now. From the great state of Wisconsin, we have Senator Ron Johnson, Middle America, common sense, one good friend, one smart guy. Well, Senator, I mean, there's a few things bothering you lately. Tell us about it.
Well, John, hope you're doing well. Well, 2 weeks ago, we held a hearing and issued a report in my permanent subcommittee investigation. We got 11 million pages from Bob Kennedy Jr. with his commitment to radical transparency, and we found in that 11 million pages is that the head of the FDA division that is in charge of vaccine approval and safety surveillance on March 1st of 2021, less than 3 months after the COVID injections got the emergency use authorization, he was briefed that the algorithm they were using to analyze the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, was going to hide the safety signals. He was told this. 26 days later, using a new analytic system, he was shown 49 cases of extreme masking and 29 safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, Bell's palsy, different types of strokes, and they ignored it. He kept getting updates from the woman, Dr. Scharsman, who was trying to warn him about this, trying to warn the public. They shunned her off to the side. They ignored them, told her to cease and desist. So this is a major scandal that our federal officials who said they were going to, use VAERS and, survey these experimental vaccines, this gene therapy, watch it like a hawk, did the exact opposite. They knew these shots were causing sudden death, and they lied to the American public. They're still lying to the American public. It should be a major scandal, John, but not one major news outlet is covering it. I was actually scheduled to be on CNN last week in the afternoon show. I said in my report, they canceled the interview. So, again, this is being covered up by federal agencies. It's being covered up, obviously, by the vaccine manufacturers. It's being covered up by big media.
Well, you're on big media right now. WABC is number one in the country, and we're telling this to the public. Now, tell us exactly again so people could understand exactly what happened.
So the head of CBER, Peter Marks, was briefed on March 1st that the algorithm they would use to analyze VAERS was going to hide the safety signals of the new COVID injections. 26 days later, using a new algorithm, he was shown that the old algorithm had showed 49 cases of extreme masking, and now they can reveal 25 safety signals on adverse events, including sudden cardiac death, Bell's palsy, pulmonary infarction. They kept getting a report every month from their data mining expert, Dr. Scharfman. They ignored her. and they continue to lie to the American public that these ingestions were safe and effective, and they're not seeing safety signals. Peter Marks will say that to this day, even though he was shown them, he just closed his eye and lied to the American public. It's a major scandal. And listen, I appreciate that you are doing this on WABC. The network, TV news hasn't covered it.
Well, and thank you for coming to us, and that's important. It reminds me of the time Senator, I'm the one that interviewed Dr. Fauci in, where was it, January of 2020 or 21? And he said, COVID, nothing to worry about. I remember the words because everybody played it afterwards.
Yeah, no, listen, Fauci is a very bad person. Bobby Kennedy pointed that out in his book, The Real Anthony Fauci. I'd recommend your audience read that one to find out really what a bad person Anthony Fauci was. We were so misled during COVID. Our response to it was a miserable failure. The shutdowns destroyed people's lives, destroyed people's businesses, the masks, which they knew wouldn't work. And then, of course, they sabotaged early treatment. I know ivermectin worked. Hydroxychloroquine, those things worked, but they sabotaged it because they wanted to push the injection. They wanted everybody to get they made
$1 zillion on the injections.
Absolutely, they made a boatload of money, and they've never admitted to this day all the harm it's done.
And I know a lot of people where the harm is done. People died of heart attacks, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, I told you about my interview with Fauci. Right now, the new disease in town from that cruise ship, they said nothing to worry about, but is there something to worry about? Any gut feeling?
Well, what I worry about is, again, the government overreaction and the taking away our freedom. So, no, I'm highly concerned that they'll overhype this. They'll scaremonger. They've already got vaccines in the waiting in the wings to now all of a sudden get everybody with this vaccine, probably on the same kind of mRNA platform that is proven so dangerous with the COVID injection. So, no, I would take this huge grain of salt. When I'm reading about the hantavirus, this is not a new strain. This is a new strain that jumps people to people. It's generally airborne in dust around rat feces, that type of thing. Generally in the Southwest. No, this is not. I don't think anything to be freaked out about at all. Now let's watch it carefully. You had the situation on a cruise ship, which is quite the little crucible there for spreading a disease. We've seen this with the Nova virus and other things as well. Probably not good for the cruise industry, but I don't think the general public needs to worry about this at all.
Well, thank you, Senator Johnson. Thank you, Senator Johnson, and we'll talk to you again real soon. And thank you for everything you do in keeping Americans informed.
Have a great day.
Really powerful stuff about the vaccine. And let's go to our resident genius, John. I understand we have Dr. Peter Milos calling in. Here he is.
What the heck is going on with the new virus? With us today is Dr. Peter Milos. And Doctor, what's going on?
Well, what's happening is the hantavirus, which originally started in Korea by the Hanta River, and what it does, it's an infection and it's aerosolized, and it starts with the poop from mice, basically, in their urine, and it gets aerosolized, gets into the lungs. And the problem is that it takes up to 6 weeks for it to show up as a disease, and 38% of people who get it can end up dying.
Now, those people that were supposed to be in quarantine and they were sending them back to New York, what happens with them? That's not quarantine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we have to be very careful because of the 6-week incubation period. I think we're going to be seeing more cases. But the good news is that we need to allow them to start using antivirals, like things that are being tested on animals and in some other countries like favipiravir and molnupiravir, things that block RNA viruses. And we need to have another Operation Warp Speed just to be prepared, not to get paranoid. But IV monoclonal antibodies like they used on COVID that Regeneron developed, we need things like that as soon as possible. And
now, Doctor, I just want to warn you. I am the same person that interviewed Dr. Fauci in January 2020 or 21, or I forget the year, and he says nothing to worry about.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we have to be careful, especially when you're cleaning out your shed, your garage. I actually know a doctor from the Hamptons who passed away 5-6 years ago when he cleaned out his garage and it got aerosolized and it goes into the lungs, causes inflammation. So it is real. It does spread. and it could take up to 6 weeks. So we're going to see more cases, and we have to be careful and be prepared.
So in other words, stay away from areas where the rats are hanging out in extra dust and extra, etc., right?
Absolutely, because it started in a landfill in Patagonia for these 2 Dutch people who ended up dying because they were in a landfill filled with rats just to get some pictures of some birds. But we need to be careful, stay away from rat poop, and wear a mask if you're going to be sweeping up a garage, a basement, or a chev, and keep listening to the WABC.
Thank you so much, John.
Wow, crazy stuff. Listen, thank goodness they seem, at least that this hantavirus, Craig, is contained.
He is one smart doctor, Dr. Mikolos, and one of the nicest guys that we've ever met.
Absolutely. We love him. And we're going to take a break, you guys. Miranda Devine right after the break on Cats and Cosby.
Cats and Cosby on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Cats and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we are back. And with us today is Miranda Devine and Rita.
Yeah, boy, Miranda, you hit it right on the head. This sort of misdirected sympathy. And I am furious, as everybody should be, about this horrible case of this guy, this repeat offender, the 32-year-old guy who just gets out of a psych ward, and he pushes the former teacher down the stairs to his death in a subway, in a New York City subway. And then there was somebody who was a victim of his before who felt bad because she didn't want to put another black man in jail. Explain what's going on here, because this infuriates me.
It really is, and it's just so sad, but so typical of this misplaced female compassion that has been so misdirected since, I guess, for the last 6 years. It's gotten worse since we had the George Floyd riots. So this young liberal woman, she refused to cooperate with prosecutors after this same guy allegedly attacked her on the subway 5 weeks before he pushed a retired New York City school teacher to his death last week. And she's 23. She now has regrets. And as you said, she told one of our reporters, maybe a part of me was just like, I don't want to put another black man in jail. And because of that, this violent, recidivist, predator, crazy or not crazy, whatever it is, he allegedly killed another victim. And she was very lucky to escape. And instead of saying to herself, right, well, I must make sure that no one else goes through the ordeal that I did, and he chased her and her friend through the subway car, according to her, and then tried to tackle her onto the ground, and she managed to get away. But this person was a very tall, very strong, fit male. And so she was lucky that she managed to evade him. And she and her friend also, she says, got off the train and they were walking down the street, or they ran, and then they were walking down the street, and this person, they said, was following them. So this is not normal. This is frightening. This is somebody who should not have been on the street. And I cannot for the life of me understand the mentality of someone who's been so brainwashed by the lies that they've been fed by the left, that, you know, the only reason that there are any people in jail who are black is because the cops and the system are racist. It's not true. The justice is blind, and it's meant to be blind, but it's getting increasingly less blind, which is dangerous for everybody, black, white, whatever race or creed you are.
Absolutely. Craig Eaton.
Two is that the DA is handcuffed, the bail laws and the discovery laws. You know, the DA must disclose the name and address and contact information for every victim and witness to a crime to the defense counsel for these dirtbag defendants. So people are afraid. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to prosecute. They don't want to cooperate because they're afraid of retaliation.
That is such a good point. And this was the laws that Andrew Cuomo brought in when he was governor. He approved them, and they went into operation in January of 2020. That was when the COVID was. So it was right before COVID hit, and everybody warned that these laws would be catastrophic, the new bail laws, but also, as you said, these new requirements that prosecutors must reveal the names and circumstances, addresses and everything of the victim to their attacker. And so, of course, a lot of women are afraid that would put them in danger. And everybody warned, but because COVID hit a couple of months later, there was a lockdowns and it was all masked. And then when crime went up after COVID, nobody put the finger on those laws.
Yeah, absolutely. Really frightening stuff. Well, Miranda, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Miranda.
Yeah, it's scary. We got to wake up.
What do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
Away. And let's join Mark Levin in progress.
Thanks for listening to Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. You can hear Katz and Cosby weekdays at 5. It's the 5 o'clock show on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?